Today we are going to discuss one of the many guilds planned for the Federation, one that directly ties in with our goals of oversight and accountability. This is the Journalism Guild. While there are plans for a general media guild, journalism has particular importance to providing the public with oversight of the Federation beyond our transparency policies, auditors group, and government oversight. Much of what we call journalism today has more in common with infotainment. For all of its superior production value, in its print and audiovisual forms, it has been reduced to something so willfully negligent of its mandate as to become a literal threat to democracy, international peace, and, through their false equivalence narratives on the climate crisis, the future of our species. Yes, there are some journalists who do their jobs with integrity and rigor, but those are two traits that are generally punished by corporate media culture, so conscientious journalists are frequently removed from their positions of access out of fear that speaking truth to power will lose the corporation access to those in power. This corrupted media ecosystem is more interested in turning citizens on each other than in covering anything that may constitute a threat against the interests of neoliberalism. If corporate media can turn those citizens against other threats to neoliberalism and oligarchy, such as democracy, as part of the culture wars, what is to stop them? Today, nothing at all. But before in the U.S., there used to be something called the fairness doctrine, which, in summary, said that if a news agency wanted to keep its broadcast license, it had to fairly represent both sides of controversial issues. We are not talking about the toxic both-sidesism of today, but something burdened by facts and professional assessment of them. Today, we have no major institution that cares about the integrity of our journalism because our media, like our government, work for the oligarchs that own them, not the people they claim to serve. When was the last time you saw a mainstream news broadcast break down how corporate media ecosystems that support neoliberal economic policies, but with different labels of right and left, use culture wars and half-truths to ensure that it is nearly impossible for one ecosystem's dedicated consumer to communicate with another ecosystem's consumer? While both strains of media use the same words, the dialectical meaning of those words are socially altered to fit each echo chamber. In the end, both sides have a dismissive send-off for the other, where one says, "You're just woke," and the other says, "It's the economy, stupid," completely unaware of the lies their own media have fed them. They are so convinced that any criticism of their own media's narrative is a personal attack that they disregard the occasional sound criticism in the fire hose of lies that contradict their own lived experiences. Look at this example. During the 2024 election, the neoliberal Democrats refused to acknowledge that about 60% of workers in the United States cannot make ends meet, even working full-time. Biden or Harris, rather than listening to the people and the communities that neoliberalism left behind to maximize profits for international corporations, and talking about how the failures of decades of neoliberal failures will be reversed, decided to point to the success of a stock market that continues to rise on the backs of the uncompensated labor of generations of the underemployed in the U.S. and the endless debt traps laid out for them, which lead to further Wall Street profit. They would rather gaslight generations of American workers about their lived experience of working poverty than say anything that would challenge the neoliberal order. So while right-wing journalism cannot be bothered to levy fair and fact-based criticism of the Biden administration, they acknowledge the working class's suffering, cultivate it with populist propaganda, and redirect it with half-truths, facts out of context, and outright fabrications, while saying, "But no one will tell you this because they are too PC, too woke to even acknowledge it." The corporate media, pretending to align to the left, refuse to acknowledge the fact that the economy is as rigged as it is, and blame rural voters for being too racist or too stupid to stay afloat in today's sophisticated global economy. The one thing that these media groups can agree on is that whosever's fault it may be, it is certainly not the rich and powerful in charge. It's those lazy Gen Xers, later the lazy millennials, the lazy Gen Z. Now these corporate media outlets are confused as to why so few of those generations watch or believe them. This is because, ever since the 90s, every generation has had corporate media lying about the economy to their parents and telling them to blame their kids rather than to hold their leaders accountable. Yes, there are some who believe in the performative narratives, left and right, of the neoliberal corporate media, but the moment they hear criticisms of their leaders, they say, "What about fill in the blank?" If it's a Republican, it's Hillary's emails or space lasers. If it's a Democrat, it's about Trump, W, or some other such person. The one thing you are not allowed to say is, "I cannot clean up both sides, but I am certainly not going to take it easy on the lesser evil when the greater evil refuses to even acknowledge the problems. So at least I can try to clean up the side which talks reality." Then you will get accused of centrism instead of trying to fix the less broken group. One side being less broken is not a good reason to allow its leaders to undermine what does work, because we cannot call for reform until we give them all the power so they can fix the other party. Yet we have a media culture that insists that we perfectly fix the other side before we can ever hold our own to account. The other side is worse is no excuse to allow corruption into one's own institutions. When journalism has been captured by neoliberal oligarchs along with leaders in democracies, what you see around you now is what you get. Your constitutional rights are under threat from both parties, because if you are not defending your rights from the two-party system, you might get ideas about fixing the economy. How do you begin to rebuild a journalism ecosystem that is independent from the Federation, because independence of journalism is vitally important to society, while still benefiting from the Federation? That is the question that determines the structure of the Journalism Guild. While today's media is designed to keep the working class in check and not to threaten the interests of the neoliberal oligarchy, the Federation Journalism Guild will be backed by the UBI and other services. This means that individual journalists cannot have their career threatened either by the Federation or by the corporate media, or their children's health and financial comfort denied through unemployment and poverty. This independent infrastructure and transparent code of ethics, with the extensive Federation safety net and its own transparency policies, would allow the general public to be well informed when they vote for their economic federation representation. This is why the Journalism Guild is one of the first guilds we will be working to create, as it is needed not only today, but also for the long-term health of the Federation and the communities it aims to serve. Today, your media does not have an interest in a well-informed electorate. It has far more financial interest in either an uninformed or disengaged electorate that allows the oligarchy to take more and more power by creating crisis after crisis, where they have an excuse to say, "I would fix this for you, but I will need more power," or "We will need you to have fewer rights." You deserve media and leadership that says, "This is the richest and most advanced country in history. Our rights are what got us to this point. If now you cannot do your job without our giving up everything that past generations have built and entrusted to us to preserve and build upon for future generations, if you cannot get the job done without taking away our rights and destroying the legacy of our forebears, it's time for some new management." While corporate media works exactly as intended for the billionaire class, it is failing generations around the world that have gotten us to where we are. Through the Federation Guild system, we hope to build a journalism tradition built on ethics and speaking truth to power, as you deserve no less. If you or someone you know are interested in journalism in service to truth and justice, please sign up or share our invitation to sign up at worldeconomicfederation.org so that you can be part of the formation of the Federation Journalism Guild to help create the future of journalism, where you can speak truth to power and stop sending media into people's living rooms to encourage people to turn on their own children. Our families deserve better than what passes for journalism, but we won't get it unless we demand it, by organizing to support those who dedicate their lives to the democratic principles of journalism. We must first lift them up so that their light, the light of truth, can shine far and wide.